And in the case of a slow train coming, I'm talking about somebody standing on the tracks, seeing something big and powerful heading their way, but it's coming so slowly that it doesn't seem to be anything they need to do anything about. You just watch it coming. And in the case of our industry, that's been the supply of skilled workers. It's been diminishing for the past decade, and it's diminished to the point now where it's become the major constraint to growth for custom integration dealers. And those of you who read CE Pro or Commercial Integrator, and that's probably most of you, probably recognize from the 2020 State of the Industry reports that the lack of qualified candidates is the biggest challenge that integrators face today. That is the biggest constraint on business. So, what's the problem? Or what's driving this issue? The major driver is the silver tsunami. That's basically the generation of people who are approaching retirement age and are on their way out. And you can understand it a lot better if you look at the graph at the bottom of the slide. What you see is a great big birth boom in the U.S. The birth rate topped 4 million a year from 1954 to 1964. And someone who was born in 1954 is 66 this year. And so that decade of huge population growth that provided an awful lot of technicians and field workers and so forth is retiring. And if you look at the graph below of U.S. births, you'll see the peak followed by the trough. And that's what makes it a tsunami. You've got a big wave that's coming, and it's starting to crash now. And so right now, more than 60% of the custom integration labor force is over 50 years of age. We're going to have an unprecedented retirement wave, and that's going to make labor shortage even tighter. So, right now, a lot of industry associations have started paying attention to that. It used to be a focus primarily on training programs, but now you've got people like, or organizations like AVIXA and like NSCA's Ignite program. CEDIA is getting involved. Some of the buying groups are starting so-called universities and so forth, but they're also starting recruitment programs. And so there's programs trying to recruit young people who are somewhat resistant to getting involved in our industry, and we haven't solved that nut as well as we'd like to. But basically, what we have is illustrated on the right-hand side of the slide. So there's ambitious new recruiting programs, but they're going to take a long time before they bring equilibrium back to the supply and demand curve. So you've got on the top, on the right-hand side, you've got an image of what I think of as the outbound experienced power workers, the level 3 and 4 techs that are all graying out and retiring out of the business. And inbound below that is a little train of younger people, and they've got to do more than join the industry. They've also got to acquire the power and the skills of the people they've replaced, and it's going to take a long time. So we're going to be in a tight labor market, I think even tighter labor market than we've experienced in the past. So that slow train is coming up fast. And to give you an idea, in 2019, it kind of went off the rails, at least in terms of the economics of supply and demand of labor. In 2019, the custom integration industry pay increases averaged double digits. They averaged about 10.2%. Revenue increase, unfortunately, was only about 4%. That's not a sustainable metric. you can see that if a trend like that continues, before you know it, we're all out of business. So how do we avoid the train wreck of a bidding war, which is what we've got right now, for talent that continues to jack up the labor cost at a much higher rate? It's outpacing the growth rate of revenue and profits in the CI industry. Well, let's talk about not what Avixa can do or what NSCA Ignite can do or what CEDIA can do. You've all tried to recruit people, and you know it is the biggest challenge that you face. But let's talk about what you can do and what you can do now with your existing labor force. Because when you face a situation where a tight labor force is the biggest constraint on your ability to grow and be profitable, you have to find a way to take the teams that you have and to make them more efficient, more productive, and more flexible. And that's going to be the second half of this presentation. How do we do that? But in the meantime, I want to make the point that downtime is really the enemy. We do not have good productivity in the CI industry. The recent estimate actually presented at a ProSource Summit by Dante Walston, who was introducing ProSource University, he had a figure of 62% of labor efficiency in the custom integration business. And that means that for every 100 hours that you pay your workers are delivering 62 billable hours. That is a substandard metric. 80%, either greater than or equal to, is the high performance benchmark, which means you're really being profitable and efficient with these people. So what's eating up the billable hours? Well, I would say, and I want to focus on one thing because we can't take them all on. I mean, you could talk about scheduling systems, and you can talk about truck routing systems and, better ways of coordinating jobs and people and times. But what I want to talk about is one simple thing, and that's truck rolls. Truck rolls are the top offender in our industry. And to stay with the train image, the top is what we should look like, and the bottom is what we do look like. This is something that we can improve. So I'm not going to take you through, actually, a little calculation because it'd take too long. But to try to give you some idea of how real these numbers are, we're going to talk about what happens if you can use a tool like Help Lightning to reduce truck rolls. And this is typical of an exercise that I go through with dealers that I talk to, and I'm happy to go through it with you folks afterwards, and we'll have more information on that because it would take too long to go through the calculation here now. But in the upper right, that little box that says typical dealer estimates, that's my approach. I say, well, how many truck rolls do you have to make every week to service customers? And this is one example, but it's very typical, 7 to 10. And how many truck rolls do you need to make a week to help other techs who are stuck, maybe junior level techs who need some help with something? In this example, we'll say 1 to 3. And what's your typical truck roll cost, all in? At $160. And what's your first time fix rate? Well, I'm using 90%. So when I plug all those in the green cells in the left of the bigger piece of a spreadsheet, that's all I plug in. The rest of it calculates itself. I come up with the following result. The yearly cost of non-revenue producing truck rolls is $96,500, almost $100,000. The yearly cost of Help Lightning, I plugged a number of 8 people using Help Lightning. That yearly cost for those licenses would be $2,880. The reduction of truck rolls that you would need to break even if you used Help Lightning instead of rolling a truck would be 3%. And the net bottom line improvement for every 10% reduction in truck rolls you could get through the use of Help Lightning would be close to $10,000. That's real money, and that's straight to the bottom line. So before we go any further, what I want to do is introduce Help Lightning as the remote expertise cure for truck rolls, something that you can do without rolling a truck to help customers. And to give you a better idea of it, we're going to roll a little video.
At Help Lightning, we are reimagining the way industries give and receive help. This patented technology uses merged reality to create a virtual interactive presence. Virtual interactive presence is the merging of two real-time video streams, blending a remote expert with a local person needing assistance into a collaborative merged reality environment. Reaching beyond the limitations of simple video and audio calls, Help Lightning's interactive help sessions accelerate and simplify problem diagnosis and resolution. Simply put, experts can be hands-on and virtually reach out and touch what their customer or service technician sees in their field of view. They can telestrate, freeze images, use hand gestures, share pictures, or even add real objects into this merged reality environment. Almost every business can benefit from this extraordinary method of delivering help. The Software as a Service solution is available as an Android, iOS, and web browser app, and it can be integrated into existing customer care and field service processes and systems. Through virtual interactive presence, you can provide quicker response times and problem resolution, dramatically improving customer satisfaction. Remote experts can instantly diagnose, solve, and validate customer care issues, even from thousands of miles away. With Help Lightning, you can be there instantly.
Okay, so I hope everybody can see that, seeing Help Lightning in action does so much more than simply trying to explain it, because, in fact, what Help Lightning does is enable you to show someone how to solve a problem remotely rather than having to be there in person. So let me, first of all, for those who aren't familiar yet, explain to you what Help Lightning is. It is a remote expertise video collaboration tool that works with smartphones, tablets, and PCs. What it does is merge two real-time video streams so experts can virtually reach out and touch what the service techs or customers are working on. And what's the benefit? Well, it's the ability to be hands-free or hands-on, I should say, from a remote location. Makes Help Lightning a very powerful productivity tool for customer service teams. It saves truck rolls, it saves time, and it saves money. And it's particularly relevant right now when we have this COVID-19 epidemic. I will have a word on that toward the end of this presentation. So what can you do with Help Lightning? Well, as you saw in the video, as opposed to simple telestration programs where you can draw lines and point to things, here you can insert your hand. You can use gestures. Examples, wipe the lens with this motion. You can show tools. You can bring them into the screen. For instance, a multimeter. You can use visual aids. You can bring in a photograph of something or a PDF of something and say, here's an example of what it'll look like after you've completed this step. You can use comparative guidance. Use tools that look like this. You can show that tool by introducing it directly into the screen of the person who's receiving help. It also has more power because being able to show things simplifies the language you need to use. Even people who don't speak your language will understand when you're pointing to something, a word like this and that. It overcomes technical language barriers. You don't need to say the RJ45 connector. You can say this piece right here plugs into that port. And the quality of understanding and speed of communication are greatly improved. In fact, our studies have shown that 22% more problems are solved using merged reality than simple video with telestration. So where are we? Well, we offer a merged reality solution, and it's positioned at the intersection of the possible and the practical. That is, it uses augmented reality, it uses very sophisticated tools, but it doesn't require new special hardware. It doesn't require expensive glasses. It doesn't require anything, any fancy equipment. You can use it using your iOS, your Android, or a browser with Wi-Fi or even LTE. And you do not have to create digitized content for it. It's you that enters the picture. It's immediate implementation, and it's a very, very intuitive interaction between yourself and the person who is receiving help. There's a lot of features that go beyond what you've been able to see so far just in that video. Telestration, of course, we can do, which is illustrating by drawing lines or circles or arrows on the screen of the person receiving help. You can freeze the screen so that somebody can use two hands to solve or work on a problem while you're giving them instructions, and you're still able to introduce your hand into that screen while it's frozen, or to telestrate on that screen while it's frozen. You can bring in documents like schematics, and you can share them. You have the ability to use a My Help Space link, which is to go out and connect with somebody who doesn't have the program on their device or doesn't have the app on their device. You can bring in a third party. If somebody calls one of your tier 3 technicians and to try to get help on a problem, and he's not really the expert on that particular, say, piece of equipment, he can actually go into the app and touch the name of another person on the team who he knows is an expert on that particular product and bring that person in, let that person be the help giver, and so you can have 3 people involved in the call at a single time, and they can change roles. You can do mobile and browser calls. There are on-call expert groups which you can set up within your organization. And you can, after the call, there's a back end with analytics, and you can add tags, you can add comments, you can even add a survey if you want, so you can determine how much Help Lightning is contributing to, for instance, your Net Promoter Score. Simple questions about would they recommend you, et cetera, et cetera. And then it has some other fancier things, smart glass support, white labeling, CRM integration, that's typically applied to much larger enterprises, but they are available and we can do them. So I said I was going to talk a little bit about Help Lightning during this pandemic that we're experiencing, and I want to make the simple point that right now your customers are sheltering in place, and their systems, as you know, will be put through the ringer because they're going to be spending a lot of time at home and they're going to get a little cabin fever. They're going to try new things, and they're going to have more problems than usual. They want their expensive systems to work, and they don't want house calls. And you need Help Lightning because that is the next best thing to being there. What your client wants is everything to work. What he doesn't want to see is a tech at his doorway who might be carrying something more than a toolbox during the current situation. So I just wanted to underscore that. And now I'm going to let you see what the folks who
Hey guys, it's Keith from Total Home Technologies. I'm here at the ProSource 2020 Summit in Las Vegas. And I'm here at the Help Lighting booth. And I have to say, this is probably the highlight of the show. This is going to assist professionals with helping out their clients at a whole different level. It's really the closest thing you can do to actually being in the room and doing it with the customer.
They never have to download an app. They just get a link. They get a text message. They click on the link, and it pops up, and now you're supporting them.
Wow, that's awesome.
Very, very powerful.
So then you can also do it on a laptop.
Yeah.
So if somebody's at the office, you've got a service manager back at the office, they got this little dock camera here. Now all of a sudden that same virtual, so you can see through, and they can point to things. There you go.
That'd be super.
Wouldn't that be? Oh, yeah.
That is a game changer. That's awesome. That's crazy.
So you have 130 integrators, and you think this might add value for some of them?
Yeah, huge.
Over at my booth at One Firefly, I had 3 of my customers come by my booth, sit with me, we're riffing, and they said, and I often will ask, what's the coolest thing you've seen at the show? And 3 folks, Keith included, said, you have to go see Help Lightning. It is by far the coolest thing at the ProSource event.